I said, I'm sorry, mama. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant to make you cry. But tonight, cleaning out my closet.
Get Stiff is a podcast where we have conversations around grief, loss, and everything in between over cocktails. Each episode coincides with a themed cocktail, and we share the recipe with our listeners.
All right, y'all. Today's cocktail is the Shady Lady, which is made of tequila, melon liqueur, and grapefruit juice. Will we like it? Will we hate it? We'll find out together. So if you're ready, raise a glass, take a sip. Let's get into it. One of the things that's rarely ever discussed when someone dies is what to do with all their shit when they're gone. So when you've lost a spouse and you have to look at their side of the closet every day or go into their office, when you just don't know what to do with your young child's now unoccupied bedroom, deciding how to divvy up mom's belongings between siblings or making sure everything is completely out of dad's apartment before the end of the month, it's a reminder of the void that's been left in your life that so many of us either dive right into the purging and regret it later, or leave everything completely untouched for months on end. So today we're going to talk about what to do with people's stuff when they're gone.
And I think it's such a deeper topic than just physical things, right? Because we have this whole new digital age where people have a digital life actually with social media and computers and iPhones and things like that. So I think it's kind of multifaceted on how we handle things. So there is this whole other aspect that we're having to consider. I just actually had to go through this pretty recently when my grandma died a few months ago. She had, so much stuff as far as physical stuff in between church clothes and jewelry, and deciding who gets what was kind of a challenge. Did you think you've faced something kind of similar?
Oh, absolutely. So when my fiance passed, we'd lived together for over 5 years, and there was just a lot of stuff. He liked to shop. And of course, he liked to collect things. He was really into comic books, anime, that kind of stuff. And so I had a ton of comic books, had a ton of video games, had a ton of clothes. There was just so much stuff. You don't realize how much you accumulate. And but not just, like you had mentioned, the digital age, not just physical things, but there were just hard drives full of, he's a big reader. I'm a big reader as well. Right. Lots of just books, lots of books, lots of movie files, TV shows, pictures from, his whole college career, videos. And I wasn't sure what really to do with it. So I just kind of compiled everything onto external hard drives, and I still have them. I don't really know what to do with them.
Right.
But, and every now and again, I'll go in and look at them. But it's interesting because it almost feels invasive to kind of look at the parts of his life that I wasn't really a part of back during that time. But, I don't know. I think it's interesting how some people will let it sit for years and years. I was maybe able to let his things sit for a couple months at most.
I remember.
And then I had, his brothers, and they were able to come in, and they've been really helpful and kind of go through and sort of made it more of an all-inclusive event where it was okay, is there anything in here that's meaningful to you that you want? And then that way I was kind of able to take what was meaningful to me. They were able to take what was meaningful to them. And then everything that was left, it was kind of okay, what can I donate? What can I, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it helped parse things down that way. But I think it makes me think a lot more about now when I shop and what I buy. It's someone's going to have to clean this. And it's made me more mindful about what I'm purchasing, about what I'm keeping. Because again, we can't take any of that stuff with us. Has that impacted you at all?
I haven't really thought of. It's funny because I don't know, especially because I have dealt with it so closely so recently. But whenever I'm buying something, I don't really think about that. This is going to be something that potentially will be, I don't have that thought. I don't know why I don't have that thought, but isn't really something that crossed my mind. But what I did notice with my grandma stuff is I know some people have an emotional attachment to certain things, and I did have certain things like, you know, her favorite coat that she always wore was something that I was like, okay, this thing for sure I want. But for the most part, I was more than willing to and happy to donate a lot of her stuff, but that's just because I know that it's something that she also would have wanted. You know, like she wouldn't have wanted me to like overload my house with things. So I think it's a personal decision how people handle things. Like you were saying, some people leave it for months. Some people just can't even bear the thought to look at it. So like right away, they just get rid of everything. And then later, sometimes those people will end up regretting it because they didn't take the time. But I don't think that there's a right or a wrong way to kind of handle it. But I think it's going to really depend on the situation. But like with my grandma, I think I took the jewelry that she wanted me to have. It was literally stated in her will that I got these rings. And then I took like a couple of her jackets, but everything else I donated to her church charity because she was so big on church. Mm-hmm. I knew that that was something not only that she would want, but that I would want because that's what she would have wanted. But I know that not everybody is in that situation. So I think it really is a personal thing because for some people, they feel like they get rid of these things and it's getting rid of a part of that person.
Yeah.
Did you experience that like with any of Matt's stuff where you like, no, this particular item I need to keep?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And well, for those, I mean, you know, a lot of people who knew us together knew that there was definitely very much a his and her aspect of what we owned. So it was like as much as he loved to shop, like if he bought a watch, there was like a smaller version of the same thing that I had as well in terms of we had matching T-shirts. We had, I mean, that
you guys had everything at like a freaking epitome of like the couple that was so, you two.
Oh God. Well, a lot of the things that he had, I already had my own memories of him tied to things that I owned because they were gifted. We were together for such a long time. They were gifted and they were mirrored items of things that he had.
Right.
So a lot of things that were just his, I didn't feel that same level of attachment to. Mm-hmm. I just kind of, I mean, I know there was a period where I just sort of didn't touch anything. And then I was kind of just ready. The day came where I was ready. And I call her my sister, one of Matt's brother's wives, just sort of sat down and was like, if you need help, like I got you. And whenever you're ready to stop, we can stop. Whenever you want to keep going, we can keep going. And I'm grateful for the support that I had in his brothers for sure and their respective spouses because I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. But we sat down, everyone came over and we did it together. And that way it didn't feel like such an insurmountable task.
Right.
But I think a lot about, like, say, for example, kind of switching gears, if someone were to lose a parent. So say if you lose a parent, you have to go clean out this home and say they're renting this apartment, you have until the end of the month to get everything out. You don't really have that luxury.
Right.
Like I had that luxury, whereas I was, you know, this was just a room in my home. So I had the option to just close the door and deal with it when I was ready to deal with it. But for folks that have to maybe clean out a parent's apartment or home and they have a fixed amount of time where they need to get that stuff out, they may not have that luxury.
Right.
What would you do if that were the case? I know your grandmother owned her home, but
well, they were selling their house though. So there was
so you did have kind of
there was kind of a time limit
deadline
on that. Yeah. I mean, I think the same thing. I think even if they weren't selling the house, I still would have reacted and done the same thing. Like my grandpa wouldn't have wanted there, and he had a really hard time with he wouldn't go in the room. It was also the room where she died, but it was her closet in her room. Like she had her own, you know, closet, and he wouldn't go in it after. Like he waited for me to come back to LA to go in the room to go through things together because it was just he couldn't do it. He couldn't bear the task. And I think it wouldn't have been different even if he were not moving, like in selling the house. But I wanted to ask you because you said, oh, one day I just felt, you know, ready. But what did that feel like? Like, how would you, like for someone who's like, I don't know how to tell when I'm ready, like what would you say was a kind of deciding factor? Like, okay, now I think I can go into this room and start, going through things.
I don't know if I can necessarily quantify how it felt. There was just a morning where, with most things, as you know, with when I decide something, or when I decide I want something, or I'm ready for something, it's almost like tunnel vision. I see nothing else. This project needs to get done, and it needs to get done yesterday. And I won't be able to sleep at night if it's not done. And I've been like that with most projects in general, and I don't think this was any different. But it was something that I was kind of putting off, and it wasn't until, again, I sat down with April, that's my brother's wife, and really just, she was just like, I got you. And now it felt like I could be full steam ahead, because I had somebody else who I trusted, who I knew kind of she would take charge without overstepping. And his brothers are the same way, where we were able to all do that together and go through it together. And there was never, I don't really know how to explain it. It was just kind of, I woke up one morning and I was like, okay, I'm ready to do this. And I texted the group chat, and everybody came over, and we made a day out of it. And then once we decided we were done, I think there was a moment we were all just like, that's enough for today. But I think support was the biggest thing for me, knowing that I had people that were genuinely in my corner and were like, we can help you do this for as long or as little as you feel like. And so it didn't feel like this big insurmountable task. Right. But in terms of his actual things, there were certain things that I was definitely connected to, like a couple of hoodies, a couple of t-shirts that, were very meaningful that I kept.
Right.
But I think because I had so many memories and so many experiences, a lot of the stuff to me was just stuff.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So what would you, like, if someone was like, okay, someone who's going through the same thing, and you can only give one piece of advice as to how to approach this, what would you say?
I would say give yourself time, give yourself grace. And if you're not in a space where you have the luxury to do that, for example, if you have to, like I said, if you have to clean out a parent's home or a sibling's home or someone's, something like that with a deadline, get a storage unit, put everything in there. That way you're not, you don't have to pay to keep the rent in that apartment or home or whatever. It's a bit more affordable. And that way you can go through it as you feel ready for. Mm-hmm. But and still I go through what I call them purge rounds. Mm-hmm. I still have so many of his things. I have so much of his stuff. And but every time I go through it, the pile gets a little smaller and a little smaller and a little smaller as I feel ready to let things go, and I'm keeping things that are still very meaningful to me. And as I come across things, I'll still reach out to his family and be like, hey, I found this random, I don't know, I think I found like his birth certificate or something like that. And so like I texted his mom and I was like, should I mail this to you?
Like, do you want this?
That's a bad example. I don't think that's exactly what it was, but it was something where it's like, I shouldn't have this. I feel like you should.
Right.
So as I come across things, I just try to do it mindfully. And then there'll come a point where I'll come across something that I didn't expect to see. And then I'm like, okay, I'm done. Lid goes back on the box, goes back in the storage unit, and I'm done. Like I came across our video from prom because we went to high school together.
Yeah.
And watching, I made the mistake of playing it because masochism, I guess. But and I watched it and I was just like, yeah, that's enough of going through things for today.
Like, all right, that's enough of torturing myself for the day.
And I think people kind of confuse the two, because you can still move on while still having strong feelings for where you were.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so a lot of that comes rushing back. Like we talk about grief, like this hole, right? Like this hole that's in you. And it never actually shrinks. It never gets smaller. You don't get over it. But what happens is your life grows around it. Your life gets bigger. And so you revisit the hole. And so I revisited the hole that day, and it was still very much a hole. And then, but then I went back to where I am presently. And that's just kind of how I think it's healthy to kind of revisit those things.
Yeah.
But I find that things that even 2 years ago that I was super attached to, I'm not as attached to now. But there are still some items where I'm like, nope, not ready to let this one go.
Yeah.
And I think it just takes time. That's the best advice I can give. My very long-winded way of saying, give yourself time and grace.
Give yourself time.
What about you? What would you, I mean, because I think it's different doing it for a partner versus doing it for like a grandparent, someone who's, an authoritative figure and a parental figure. I feel like that's a different level of intimacy going through their private things. Because I mean, with a partner, you're already like, I knew for the most part, I knew what I was going to find.
Yeah.
There were some things that I was like, okay, but for the most part, you know what you're going to find. I think it's different when you are in a almost parent-child relationship with someone, and then you get to see this deeper side of them through what they've kept over the years. What was that like?
I think the craziest thing is that we found that my grandma had like this security box that no one knew about. She had all of her diamond jewelry, all of this. So, and my name was the only one on it, and I didn't even know this thing existed. So stuff like that felt like a little bit personal, but obviously she knew that I was going to be the one to find it and the only one to have access to it. But I'm not going to lie, in some aspect of that, I felt kind of guilty, right? Because my grandpa, who'd been married to her for God knows how long, isn't the one who had his name on the box. So like when he was trying to close out accounts and trying to do things and he found the paperwork for the box, he was like, calls them up, sees, and they're like, oh, we can't release anything to you. You're not the one named on the box. And for him, I don't know, I just felt kind of guilty because when he called me, I could just kind of hear it in his voice, like that he's like, oh, well, you're the only one whose name is on it. And I was like, me? Like, why me? So in that aspect of things, it was difficult and felt invasive. And like when I was, he wouldn't go into her room or her closet until I was there. And just to have like the weight of that, because it's a big thing. My grandparents are very old. They're in their he's in his late 80s and she was in her mid 80s. So they've lived great lives, but still they come from a completely different generation than we do. And they handle things differently than we do. And they collect things differently than we do. And it was definitely a challenge having to go there and see these things that, not that she had kept hidden, but that she never felt she wanted to share. So it did feel a little bit invasive on that part, like seeing some of these things and going through her closet, knowing that she did things a certain way, for a certain reason. But once I got over that and I saw the relief that my grandpa had, that he didn't have to be the one to go through her stuff alone, I felt a little bit better. But luckily, I mean, like I was saying, my grandparents are very old. Our grandparents are very old, so we don't have that like digital aspect of things. Did you have to deal with like the digital space? Like, did Matt have social media that you had to cleanse? Like,
I mean, he had like a Facebook account, which I did nothing with. I think it's just still regular. Like, because I feel like a memorial page was crass. I don't think he would have liked that anyway.
Like the in memoriam.
Yeah, like right now, I think his Facebook page is still like a graphic image of Mogget and the disreputable dog from the Sabriel series. If you don't know who that is, Google it. That series is fantastic. But I mean, he wasn't really a big social media person anyway, so there wasn't much to scrub.
Yeah.
And the stuff that was there, I feel like he wasn't really somebody that would want some big to do about, in memoriam, do ye this in remembrance of me. No, he wasn't really like that. And I think that even the ceremony that we had, which was absolutely beautiful, and
it was.
But even that, I feel like he would have been like, y'all doing too much.
He would have been like, really? There's singers here and shit? Poetry being read? What is happening right now?
But there wasn't really much, but like I said, what I did pull, because he did take a lot of pictures, and being a millennial, we were in that phase where not everything went on the internet right away.
Right.
A lot of that stuff was in like digital cameras, where you had your digital camera and you would upload the files on your computer. So a lot of that stuff was able just to be put on external hard drives, and I have those, but not really, nothing really in the social media age. Now I think about my digital footprint, like I imagine you think about yours.
Oh yeah, now.
And that is significantly heavier. In terms of your digital footprint, what do you want people to do?
Oh man. I mean, some of my selfies are fire. I think they should be appreciated for as long as possible. And people to remember me and like, this is my fucking golden era. Like, I think that should be appreciated. But as far as, I don't want the in memoriam, I don't want all of those things. But you know what I was thinking about is, as far as personal stuff.
Gross. I know I swallowed right in the mic. Gross. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
I heard it when I did it. Ew.
I wasn't even paying attention, to be honest. But now I'm going to be looking for it. So thank you.
You're welcome.
But anyways, like I was saying, I don't want to be in memoriamed, but I feel like the pictures need to be saved somewhere. But I don't know. I think it would kind of depend on whoever it is that is in charge of it. Like for some people, I don't know, like my mom, she might feel comfort being able to see some of my pictures and things that I chose to post, or things, I think it would depend whoever it gets left by. But it kind of makes me think, like, how do we distinguish between things that matter to like me versus things that are matter to the person who it's left? So like for you, did you have things that you knew Matt really loved that you felt the need to keep just because, he loved them? Or did you just kind of keep things that had meaning to you specifically?
Well, I have two things that really matter to Matt, and their names are Jubal and Cersei.
Yeah.
And like we have these two cats that I never considered myself a cat person. Never really wanted cats, and now I say I don't consider myself a cat person, but I love my cat.
You are a full-blown cat lady. Your cat has a fucking laptop.
She does.
She has a laptop.
She's a businesswoman. Okay?
She has her own.
She has shit to do.
You are a full-blown cat mom.
She has shit to do.
So
but,
Matt wanted them.
Yeah. Oh no, I was full on dog person. I did not want a cat, and then he gave me his little Snoopy eyes. The Reed boys have these Snoopy eyes, is what I've called them, and Milan is laughing. Our producer is laughing because he knows what I'm talking about. Where they do this, I maintain that like Puss in Boots got that cat look, that sad look
from them.
From them. And he gave me this look. He held up this tiny kitten, which was the runt of the litter that my friend had, and was like, "Can we?" And I'm like, "All right, fuck it, fine." So that's how we ended up getting Cersei. And then Jubal was a compromise kitten. Because I wanted a bigger apartment. We were in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. I wanted a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. And so he said, it seems like a fair trade-off. We get a second cat, you get a second bedroom. You feel like that's fair. Mm-hmm. And so we randomly got Jubal. She was another like random backyard kitten that we stumbled upon. And I've had them ever since. Jubal, Cersei's going to be 11 in May. It's April right now that we're recording, but when this comes out, it'll probably be June. So she'll be 11 by the time this comes out. And that Cersei will be 11 in May, and then Jubal will be 8.
It's crazy.
So little old ladies.
But what about more like physical things? Like let's say like he had something that you just hated and you thought it was atrocious, but you knew that he loved it so much that you're like, I can't get rid of this fucking thing that he loves so much. Like, I can't do it. Is there something like that? Or were you pretty much like, you loved the same things and you're like, oh, I'll keep this? No,
most of the things that he had that we had a shared interest for, I mostly kept. But like I said, I'm not really big on stuff. One thing that I thought was atrocious that I actually do still have. So Matt was basically legally blind. Like he could not see, and the glasses that he did have were incredibly thick, like incredibly thick. And he used to wear one of those like glasses holders thing to keep them from falling off his. And it was the ugliest thing, and I hated it so much. And I still have it. I still have it.
Yeah.
And I actually had my prescription put in one of his frames. So, which is, and I look ridiculous because the frames are way too big for my face, but like, so I still have those, and I have that stupid eyeglass chain on them that I only wear. They're my backup glasses that I keep at home. So that might be the one thing. But in terms of other things, not really so much in terms of stuff. One thing that I did hold on to for a long time because he traveled a lot, he had studied abroad. I kept a lot of his journals. And then only like maybe a couple of years, not even a couple of years, maybe like 2 years ago, I think, I gave them to one of his brothers because he specifically asked for them. And I said, I promised him, I said, when I'm ready, yes. And he was okay with that. So I finally shipped them all off and like sent them to his brother. But yeah, he was a big journaler. He liked to write a lot, liked to write. Sometimes a lot of like he wrote a lot of poetry actually, which sounds way more like, I don't know. It was really good stuff. And then he would write rap lyrics too sometimes. That would be
I remember when he showed me that. What was that battles? The rap battles?
Oh
that
gosh, the epic rap
He got me
battles.
obsessed because he knew I loved Edgar Allan Poe, and he got like hours.
Yes.
Like I was like, for hours I would watch these
Yes.
things because of him, and I'm like, damn it, Matt. I go down this rabbit hole of fucking epic of people I'd never even heard of.
Yeah.
It's like I blamed him. Every time now it still pops up on my thing. I'm like, Matt, damn it. I'm getting suggested these epic rap battles for like Elon Musk versus like Steve Jobs. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, we watched a lot of those. But yeah, I don't think, for me, it's never been so much stuff. It's always been memories. It's been a lot of photos, videos, voicemails, like that kind of thing are things that I like. I have voicemails, and some of these voicemails and videos are the dumbest things, but I still have them. So those to me are more important than stuff. And yeah.
Do you feel like you're always going to have like some of his stuff as a part of whatever phase you're in your life? Like you'll always have like, okay, this is Matt's, but you're.
I don't know. If you would have asked me that question 3-4 years ago, I would have said yes. But I'm honestly not sure. I just have learned to roll with it, and I will say anything that I feel is, super important, and maybe if it's not necessarily important to me, but it may be important to someone else in his life, I'll check with whichever person before I get rid of something or donate it. Like he had, like in Whitney's episode, how she talked about she has Matt Reed weed.
She did.
She has some of Matt, like just old weed that's just in a glass jar. She and Meryl both have some of his like rave candy bracelets from our music festival days. Like I gave some of those to them that they find that they're really attached to. So I think it just varies. But yeah, I don't know. I can't give a yes or no to that question.
Do you think that memories are like attached to certain objects? So
Yes.
that makes sense. Okay.
Yes. So I went to this really great grief workshop. And we'll put the info in the link, but I forget the name of the woman who ran it. But she has this traveling art gallery where she talks about how her mother died. And she has all of these objects on display that remind her of her mom. And in this workshop, she encouraged people to post pictures of things that reminded them of loved ones that they've lost. And everyone was posting like, oh, this doll was something that my mom gave me, or like this coaster is something that my dad, would always use, or this beer cozy reminds me of my brother and stuff like that. So I do think that objects have significant meanings and they're attached to memories for sure. Like absolutely. But I don't know if that significance stays. I think maybe especially while the loss is fresh, for sure. But I mean, maybe in time, I think it may always remind you of someone, but I think the intensity of the feelings may shift. So while you may look at something and feel immensely sad initially, like I used to look at my engagement ring and get immensely sad. And now I mean, I don't know, I haven't looked at it in years, but I don't feel that same sadness anymore. I feel more of a, like, wow, that was like, what a time. Like, what a time. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for what I've learned. I'm grateful for what I had when I had it. And I'm grateful for the person it's brought me to be, because I mean, I don't like that phrase, everything happens for a reason. I think that's bullshit. But I do believe that I would not be the person that I am now had I not gone through that. And so for that, I am grateful, but I feel like I can be grateful and still upset that it happened at the same time, if that makes sense.
Still sucked.
Yeah, hell yeah, it
fucking
did.
sucked.
Oh, it fucking sucked, man.
sucked.
It does. But, I think it's just, at this point, it's just kind of become a part of who I am. Just like I'm a funeral director. That's just who I am. It's not just what I do, it's part of who I am. And at this point, it's like, well, I am someone who was engaged and lost her fiance. Like, that's just a part of who I am now. And you just take that with you. So, yeah, I feel like I'm going on a tangent, but that might be the sippy.
I think that's a good. I think that's a good, point to tell our listeners too. So that lesson that you just gave about, there may be memories attached to certain objects, so it's okay if people want to hang on to things for
absolutely
a little bit longer and they're not ready. But if that time ever does come and you do feel like, hey, I've accepted this and this is kind of what it is, and I appreciate the memories and everything, but I don't need to keep this. I don't need to hold on to this object anymore. Then that's okay too. You shouldn't feel guilty, or you shouldn't feel any type of things if you feel like you're ready.
I have a question for you.
Ooh, what?
Did my voice get all deep and sultry?
Please don't try.
So, are there any objects that you have that you would want to invoke memories in people that you leave behind?
I think so. Honestly, I think all of my journals, I have a lot of journals.
Oh, God. Burn those. Someone needs to burn mine.
I trust my mom. I trust Gia with these things. My books are super important to me. I'm trying to think. Because usually the books that I buy all have some kind of meaning. Like, you can tell if you go into my book room, my reading room, that they're all like books that are part of my life in some way. Like, they're death books, or they're like tree books, or like nature books, or things that just are really important to me. But as far as more superficial type things, like my jewelry, because a lot of it has my grandma's ashes in it, and those are probably like the most important things to me. But everything other than that, I mean, my house is my apartment's like a museum.
It is.
So
that's where we are, by the way.
This is
her. That's why I have on this black t-shirt, wink, wink, in honor of her sad.
You come to the darkness. You got to incorporate yourself into the darkness. But yeah, as far as anything other than those things, no. I mean, my presence is pretty intense. And I think if you take anything from my apartment, it just screams my name. So
this is true.
Yeah, whether anything Edgar Allan Poe, like, you just immediately associate with me. So I don't have a specific object that I'm like, I want them to have this. Like, I think it would just be anything that they felt an attachment to or had a memory with, I would be fine with. What about you? Burn your journals. Write that down. I got to write that down. Burn Shannon's journals.
I mean, you can read them before you burn them,
you best believe I am reading them before I burn them.
Oh my gosh, burn those, because my God. Yeah, I collect snails.
Right?
Why? So snails, well, just in general, snails to me have always represented patience, resilience, and perseverance. But that was also what Matt called me. We actually called each other Snail. And people had given them to us over the years. I have a bunch of them, like little ceramic ones, glass blown snails. I actually have a snail tattoo.
Yeah, I know.
On my foot.
I think I've gotten you some snail stuff.
Yeah,
before.
you have. But even my tattoo, one of my best friends, Danny Rockman, who's an amazing tattoo artist, did my memorial tattoo. But I think I think I would want everyone to take a snail. And just to kind of have that, and not even in remembrance of me, but just as a reminder that no matter how long that road seems, no matter how much work you have to do or how far you have to travel, like just you will get where you're supposed to go eventually. Just keep pushing. And I want that to be a reminder to anyone I leave behind. I don't subscribe to that. Oh, I don't want people to be sad. No, I want people to be sad. Cry for me, damn it. Cry for me. I want casket climbers. I want screaming. I want wailing. Miss me. But I do want you to carry on. I do want you to carry on and keep going. And just that gentle reminder that even if something is tough, even if life may salt you, because there's some salty bitches out there, you can push through, you can keep going, and you can get to the other side. Right? That was profound as fuck. Well, thank y'all for coming with us on this journey. I don't fucking know.
This journey? That sounds kind of weird. But yeah, thank you for following along with us.
Yeah. As always, this has been another episode of Get Stiff Talk.
Stiff drinks.
And we out.
Get Stiff is produced by Melon Reed. Do you have a topic you want to hear us get into? A drink recipe you'd like to recommend? Do you have a story to share? We want to hear from you. Get in touch at getstiffpodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us on Instagram at getstiffpodcast.